If you've heard me speak about the Iacranes languages, chances are big you'll know I'm taking the Tolkien approach and translating it from Eggiolonia. That's why sometimes dialogue won't make any sense or it'll sound raw. However, there are two words I cannot translate correctly because the world of the Eskasek is just that culturally different. Those words are ki and ke, and those words aren't just one-time use either. They are the Eggiolonian versions of mother and father. A lot of familial Eggiolonian words are based on them, especially ki. So why can't they be translated correctly? The Eskisekians don't get pregnant in the way Earthlings do. The first step of getting a child is being an adult. The most common age of adulthood is 20, but it can vary among species. Very important, children cannot get pregnant. A lot of Eggiolonians get a child right after becoming an adult, and that usually has to do with invincibility. You see, up until adulthood, children are basically invincible. They can only be killed by the gods themselves, and that includes sacred weapons. The only time this invincibility doesn't work is if they do something that gets an adult killed. Then Kaflada kills them. Say you have a child driving a car and they cause a crash with 5 cars. Everyone dies except them. That'd be rude, won't it? I'm getting off track. Babies also have this invincibility. So when someone gets pregnant, they temporarily become invincible. So basically, you cannot have babies while you're invincible, but you can if you're not. Gay pregnancies are a thing. That's probably why it's so difficult to translate. There's actually some lore about why gay pregnancies exist. So, originally, women were the people who gave birth due to Roosterblade being a woman. But Fire was in love with the guy and decided he wanted babies as well. So he literally just went up to his father and told him to give people equal rights, and Yelloweye did. This is also why the Eggiolonians aren't homophobic. There are more LGBTQ plus gods than there are straight ones. If you're homophobic in Eggiolonia, you will be smited. So then, why is there a difference between gender if it doesn't matter who gives birth? That's because women are born with a baby storage built in. And since evolution doesn't exist in this world, they just never get rid of that. Men also can grow baby storages when they're pregnant. Also, it starts glowing with bright yellow veins. So, Earth women have 2 breasts, Eggiolonian women only have one, and it splits in half during the birth to get the baby out. For species that aren't mammals, they just puke out their eggs. Then you have to pray to Yelloweye with your husband or wife. You basically ask him if he will give you a child. And you can't give him a list of suggestions. There are a few options here. Yelloweye could straight up refuse to give you a baby, but if he accepts, he can choose whether or not to follow your suggestions. Say you're a blonde white woman with an Asian wife. And you guys ask Yelloweye, we want our baby to be a blonde boy with blue eyes. He could A. do that exactly, B. do that but not everything, C. give you the opposite, or D. give you a whole different species. And it'll still be yours too. Just because your baby doesn't look like either of you doesn't mean you cheated. The opposite is also true. If you cheated and you ask Yelloweye, hey, can you make this baby look like my husband? He can choose to do so, but he must really like you for that because he hates cheaters. Also, it's not Yelloweye who picks what the baby ends up like. Yelloweye just decides which suggestions turn into demands for the baby. He can add some, and then he gives the energy the task to create a body for the baby. Also, here's a fun fact. The first child in a gay relationship is more likely to be of the opposite gender to balance it out. So if you're 2 men, your baby will most likely become a girl, and 2 women add up to 1 boy. So how does Yelloweye pick which person to make pregnant? He'll usually pick the woman. This is to honor Roosterblade. But not always. If the woman is very sick, for example, he'll take her husband. If there's a parent who wants to be pregnant and one that desperately doesn't want to be pregnant, he'll pick the one that wants to be pregnant. Or, he does the opposite. He's a god and he can literally do whatever he wants. For gay people, if neither of those options is available, he just randomizes it. That's why it could be that the pregnant parent switches during a second or third pregnancy. Here's where the translation issue slips in. Ki and ke aren't equal to father and mother. It actually translates to birth giver and support parents. Ki is the one who gives birth to you, and ke is the one that is supposed to support Ki during pregnancy and also while the baby is still a child. Also, if they ever divorce or if the child is taken away, the adoptive or step-parent is called Kri-Ke, the second parent. Kri-Ki doesn't exist because your step-parents can't give birth to you. Kri-Ke can often be shortened to Ke. It is often for the child to call their mother Ki and their father Ke, but If they get a sibling with their mother as Ke and their father as Ki, that'll get really complicated. The show is literally called just Daddy Issues. In Iakran, that would be Mi Zaruke. I'm going into pilot spoiler territory a bit, so be aware. The show is called that because it refers to Taiwan's daddy issues, but it also applies to various other characters with daddy issues. To keep it simple, let's start with Taiwan's family. Taiwan's Ki is Void Noise's Ke, and Taiwan's Ke is also Void Noise's Ke, because Void Noise wasn't born into the family. If there was another sibling, it's entirely possible Taiwan's Ki is their Ke, and Taiwan's Ke is their Ki. If you're going by that logic, the show's name isn't even correct, because it should be called Mommy Issues instead. However, the person the title is about, I'd say 3 out of 4 times the father, and not the mother, so it's a good average. He's also a man. I want to take a closer look at a few specific lines in the pilot. Dad killed Mom, I'm not returning! You think Mom's death didn't affect me? If we would use the Kike system here, the lines would turn into this. Mom killed Dad, I'm not returning. You think Dad's death didn't affect me? Immediately, whole other vibe. But it still makes sense, right? Well, here's the second time they bring up their parents. Father wanted to send Danny alone, but I thought that you would come along easier if I went along. Father had his chance and he wasted it! That'll turn into this. Father wanted to send Danny alone, but I thought that you would come along easier if I went along. Mother had his chance and he wasted it! That would be a bit confusing, right? Because Void Noise was talking about his father, so why did Timeline bring up his mother? Additionally, with the added context from the previous line, it's weird for Void Noise to bring up his father, as we've just been told that she got murdered. By the inclusion of the rest of the argument, it seems that Void Noise's father sent him and Dandelion recently to retrieve Time Winds. The timeline would get a bit distorted and people would get very confused. Not to mention the gender switching, especially in Void Noise's dialogue. For Time Wind, I think people would catch on to father equals woman and mother equals man. But then Void Noise comes along, talking about the same parents and keeps calling both female and male parents father. I do want to translate the show accurately, but I also want the show to be clear to understand. So, should I use the KeyCast system or just localize the dub? I don't know.